Hey there, renovators. My name's Adam, and if this is your first time watching, this is my renovation here on Iris Street. This is week 106, and in the first part of the week, Mike and I wrap up our cruise trip in the Bahamas. In the second part, we come back to civilization here, and I finish up some work on the porch, namely installing windows and the French door thanks to Mike's help. I finished the week out by doing a little bit more drywall mounting. So let's get back to the Bahamas. At the beginning of week 106, Mike and I are still on our cruise trip, and it's Wednesday morning. We've just arrived in Nassau in the Bahamas. This island is a beautiful island, and we got off of our boat early in the morning and went on a walk to one of the public beaches. This place is chock full of fancy resorts like the Atlantis resort you see in the background there. And we actually walked up to it, walked through it. We found out, thanks to the security guards, that this place is a private resort, and unless you are a guest here, you're not really allowed in. But since we walked on the streets and walked in the front door, we did get a little sneak preview of this really nice resort. Anyways, after getting properly kicked out of there, we made our way to one of these public beaches, and this beach was kind of awesome because you can see these waves. Like, they're a lot more active than waves I've seen on beaches in Florida. And in fact, one time, Mike actually got blasted from about 30 feet back. He thought he was in a safe spot, and he still got wet. Anyways, we had fun just checking out this beach and kind of resting our feet for a little while. This is pretty much all we did. We saw a few other shops, but otherwise just enjoyed the ocean here. Mike and I were kind of paranoid about getting left behind, so we got back to the ship a good hour before it departed, and that was nice because we got to get a nice vantage point out here on deck 4, so we could watch our sister ship there, Anthem of the Seas, take off, and then get a good view for our own departure. On Thursday morning, we arrived at Royal Caribbean's private island called Coco Cay, and I actually had to look it up. A cay is like a small mound of sand or hill above the ocean, so it's a small island, but there's still tons of stuff to do here. We're talking like 7 private beaches, pools, a giant water park, tons of stuff. Before we got off the ship, it's Thursday, so it was a workout day. Got one more workout in on the gym up here in the fitness center, and then after that was all taken care of, Mike and I were able to put on a bunch of sunscreen, get off the ship, and check out this island. As I mentioned, Coco Cay is Royal Caribbean's own private island. They recently spent about $230 million renovating this place, and it's kind of amazing because it has everything you'd want. Beaches, shops, zip lines, a water park, and all of this is included with your cruise fare. If you want alcohol, that's going to cost you extra, but even lunch here is included with your cruise fare. So we had a nice little buffet lunch, and you know, the food's okay. It's good. It's not gourmet, but it's good. Hamburgers and chicken and corn on the cob and desserts and salads and all of that kind of stuff. We had a good time in this little bay. And this is one of the quieter beaches, but if you want live music that's being DJ'd, they have that. They have everything here. Here you can see the dining hall where we ate lunch, and we actually met some really nice vloggers there. I'll link them up here in the video. They've got this little truck that takes you around the island if you're not feeling like walking, and Yeah, Mike wanted to buy a hat here, so we checked out these shops, and Mike was able to get his souvenir before we headed back to the ship. Mike is a big fan of critters, and we were really lucky to see this lizard just sunning himself on the sidewalk on our way back to the ship. This is kind of cool. On the left is our ship, on the right, a different ship, Allure of the Seas, which is an Oasis class ship, which is the next class larger and newer than our ship. So it's kind of cool when you're cruising around, you get to see these different ships. I think we picked a good one. It's not the newest, it's not the oldest, the biggest, or the smallest. Our ship was just a good medium standard cruise ship, and we really enjoyed it. Since this was our last night on the ship, we actually explored a bunch of parts of the ship that we really hadn't explored yet. As I said, these ships, even though ours isn't even that big, still huge. So we checked out some of the upper decks we really hadn't checked out yet. They have really nice swimming areas for both adults and kids. This is deck 12 up here, so they actually have a walking and a running track up here, and it's just a beautiful place to take in the ocean, get some views in. We happen to be up here during the golden hour, which is always a plus, makes everything look nicer. And yeah, caught a really beautiful sunset. An attraction on nearly every Royal Caribbean ship is one of these flow riders. We saw some people eat it, and then we saw some pretty good people, like this guy. They have a ton of activities for kids too. Happened to be having a youth basketball tournament while we were up there. And finally, it was our turn for dinner. Another cool thing on these ships is sometimes they even have full-on Broadway musical productions. So we saw Grease, and this was actually Michael's first Broadway show of any kind, and he was cracking up. He really had a good time. So yeah, there's something for everyone on these ships. Friday, at long last, we returned to port and headed home. Mike was getting a kick out of this sculpture, and it's called the Traveler. And it looks real, and boy, can we all relate to this guy, just tired and ready to go home. So, finally, we were able to get through security, head to our terminal, and get on out of there. On Saturday, it was back to the grind at the house. You can see the weather's a lot colder than it was down in Florida and the Bahamas. We're all wrapped up, and speaking of wrapping things up, I'm finishing wrapping up my house, my porch with the Tyvek. So as I mentioned in last week's video, I would correct the Tyvek, and you see me trimming it back here. Apparently, this is just the easiest way to fold Tyvek in and staple it, but apparently, that's actually not the way the manufacturers recommend you install Tyvek, because if you fold it in like that, it actually allows an entrance or a pathway for the water to follow inside the home. More than that though, if you have your house wrap inside the window jambs and you foam it in and that foam shrinks a little bit, the Tyvek actually doesn't provide the sturdiest backer. So by trimming it and foaming between the wood and the windows, you actually get the tightest seal. So yeah, Mike was a huge help here, helping me get these windows aligned. I was using my laser level and using my shims, and I think we got them pretty good. You know, no building's perfectly square, but we did as good as we could, and I think everything was within a 1/4 inch tolerance from top to bottom. Once those windows are caulked and in, I can put up my tape, and that's all for today. Mike was with me one more day on Sunday before I took him back home, and he was kind enough to help me get the French door on this porch installed. Before I could leverage Mike's help though, I needed to anchor these members just a little bit better than they were. I'd had them nailed down, but I wanted some good bolts in there as well. Mike has actually helped me install both French doors in my house, so he's basically an expert at this point. And yeah, this one went in pretty nicely. Had to shim it into square, but got it hung up and everything's looking real good. still waiting on that final window on the south wall. It's a custom order from eWindow Store out of Texas, but I can proceed with most of the rest of the porch while I'm waiting on that. And that's going to be all for Sunday. On Monday, I wrap out the week with a little bit more drywall mudding. As I mentioned last week, I'm trying to do one room a day, so my room today is a small room, it's the hallway, but there were still enough little tape bits that it took me a minute. And that's going to be a week. We'll see you guys next week for week 107.